So let's talk a little bit about programming our microcontroller. Now, the lessons that we've done so far have been using this PictoBlocks. And if you've taken past Sioux Falls projects, we've used this PictoBlocks a few times as well. It's just a really easy way to program the Arduino. And it's just drag and drop, as you've seen. Anybody that's familiar with the Sketch language is very familiar with how to do that. And it's just easy for kids to understand and be able to program one without diving deep into the code. Now there's a bunch of options, and the most common option is to use something called the Arduino IDE. And IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, which kind of is just a fancy word for a way to write code or a platform for writing code. And when I say code, I do mean legitimate code. I've had kids ask me in the past about, what are we going to write code? And I'll show them PictoBlocks, and they don't think that's code. They think that's more drag and drop, and they want to get back into the actual code. Well, we're going to actually write some code here in today's lesson, and I'm going to show you a few examples as well. Now, these are just two of many, many different ways in which you can program the Arduino. Now, the Arduino itself is a platform, and it's kind of a combination of libraries and the microcontrollers that we've been using. And so there's been a lot of different people, different projects that have created different ways to program them. And today we're going to talk about this guy. So if you head over to arduino.cc, and I'll have a link in the lesson plan as well, you'll come to this web page, which is the Arduino homepage. And this is going to have all of the resources and information about the Arduino itself. It's also going to be where we download the Arduino IDE. And they've got a newer option. It's been available for a few years, and I've only used it a handful of times for certain projects, but they do have a version that works entirely online that you can just use in your browser. So if you're using something like a Chromebook or a Mac and you don't want to mess around with downloading and installing the Arduino IDE, I'm going to show you how you can use the online version as well. There's some differences between the two, but for everything that we're doing, there really shouldn't be an issue. So let's take just a second and talk about the download version versus the online version, and you can help make a decision as to which path you want to take as well. Now, if you want to involve your parents on this, this is fine. Sometimes the laptops might be locked down and you can't install a program, in which case the online version is going to be the way to go. So the download version doesn't require a login, so we're just going to download it. It does get installed directly on the computer, just like any other program would on your computer. There is an option here, because it's local, that you can build an unlimited amount of programming. Now, that technically doesn't matter for the small amount of work that we're doing, but if you do want to get into building more things with the Arduino and you want to expand out, you may run into some limitations in the future. And then lastly, if you have the download version, you have to manage your own libraries. And I'll explain a little bit about that when we do the walkthrough, but it does mean you have to download and install things yourself. And it's still pretty easy, but it is one extra step. Now, the online version, there's nothing to download. In fact, you can just go to a website just like you would any other website and just type in a login and password and be able to then get access to your files and then be able to code your Arduino. You can also use it across different computers, and this is one of the huge benefits when I'm doing collaborative projects with other people. We can both log in and share that code, and we don't have to email things back and forth. So being able to go from one computer to the other and have all of your projects there is a huge advantage. The online version is a little bit easier to manage the libraries. It's got a little bit tighter in, and you can't kind of mess things up as easily. But again, we're not going to do a lot with libraries on this project, so that's not really a big factor. And the other big thing on the online version is it's always up to date, which I do love. You'd be surprised at how often the Arduino download version gets updated, and so you may feel that you're constantly out of date and always updating your downloaded version. So the online version is also quite helpful there as well. I'm going to show you how to use both of them. So if you know which direction you want to go, great. If you don't, I would kind of lean you towards the download version, because that's the version I'm going to be using for the rest of today's lesson.